Good morning, guys. Allie Duzette here. It is 6:30 a.m. I'm here with baby D over here. Hello. But today I wanted to talk about... Hi, we gotta be quiet. Today I wanted to talk about modern monetary theory, which is something that I started talking about in my Facebook group. Shh. Here, you play with toys. And I feel like it's important for you to understand this concept of modern monetary theory because that is basically the thing. It's not causing all of our problems, but it's causing many problems. And so we have to understand what it is. But basically the idea, like if we're just going to sum it up into a couple sentences, modern monetary theory is the idea that a fiat currency, because it has no backing, can just be, you can just print as much of it as you could possibly want, and there will never, ever be a negative economic result from that. And if there is, then you can solve that by just increasing taxes. Okay, so that's it in a nutshell. Okay, but I'll go back and explain it a little bit more. So fiat currency refers to the idea that it's currency or like money that is not backed with any kind of like actual item. Okay, so we know, I think it was 1978 that we got off the gold standard. And man, so here is basically what happened. So World War I totally took up so much money, right? Like every country needed tons of money in order to fight it. And who did they all borrow from? Well, the only basically solvent and industrialized nation that existed, which was the United States. That we were the only ones that weren't involved in the war, right? We got involved 3 years into the war. And so in the meantime, we were the creditor to basically all of who we would consider the good guys. And so everybody else in the world, like during World War I, all the good guys were borrowing from America in dollars, which of course, remember that the dollar was a new currency at that time, right? The dollar only became standard in 1914, right? And so in that same decade, we had World War I, everybody's borrowing in dollars. And then we kind of had a similar situation, right, with World War II, where America was not involved right away. And so people were borrowing from us. And anyway, in 1944, we had a thing called Bretton Woods, which kind of established the monetary system for the world at that time. And so at that time, everybody, all the different nations had their currency value pegged to some kind of dollar amount. And then all of that was tied to the gold standard, with gold at $35 an ounce. And so, and with no room for that amount to change. Okay, it's $35 an ounce forever, ever. That was the agreement, basically. And so at this time, at least my own understanding is that when these different nations during these wars, when they were borrowing from the US, my understanding is that they actually literally sent gold over to the United States. I could be wrong on that, but that is my understanding, is that they actually sent gold. And when we're talking about this transfer of wealth, it's like a literal transfer of wealth. They literally sent gold over to back their loans and stuff like that. And so by the end of the war, basically the US had like all the gold, from Europe, not all of it, but much of it. And so in 1978 is when Nixon took us off the gold standard, and there were some problems. It's checks. We're gonna read about checks. Here you go. Let's point at some checks. But so part of the problem was, at that time, I understand that France was just buying up gold because it's like $35 an ounce. They're like buying up all of this gold. And it got to the point where it was like a little untenable, because here is the crazy fact that I just learned this yesterday. If you took all of the gold in the entire planet, we would only have $210 billion worth of gold, which, as you can see, is a problem because we had such a massive expansion of value that we didn't have the actual gold to match it. As we industrialized, as we globalized, as trade, I mean, in the aftermath of World War II, America's policing all of the oceans and making sure that all shipping is protected, right? So anybody can receive anything from any place at any time. And this opens up this whole new level of value. And we just didn't even have the currency available to express that in hard terms. I mean, like there was just not enough metals in the world, like precious metals, to back that level of value. So, and then of course, like we had like the French buying up all the gold, and it's like, okay, wait a minute, all of our gold is getting bought up and we only have enough to support about $200 billion worth of value, but like so much more value is happening. In a way, it according to all my research from the past couple of weeks, it has looked like this was a little bit inevitable, like that keeping up with the global economy and having America be the default currency, of course, at some point, it would seem like it was necessary to completely divorce the currency from actual value, from actual metal, because what else are you going to do? Like there was just so much more value added to the economy, and there was just not enough metal to correspond to all of that. And so, oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can you bring me some more? So that is basically what happened. So in 1978, we became a fiat currency, which basically means that it was created by fiat or like decree. He's just like, suddenly we have lots of money. Like it is not tied to actual value or actual reality at all. We are just making it up. So even though they were just making it up, well, first off, they did just make it up and they flooded the economy with dollars, as far as I understand. And so then we got the hyperinflation of the 70s and early 80s that I was talking about in another video, about how, which they solved with the interest rates rising and then the oil boom. So they had to make it harder for people to borrow money from the future, right? And then they had to also make it, they also had to add value to the dollars that currently existed. Okay, we have to add value and decrease the amount of total dollars that are available if we're going to reduce inflation. Okay, so now, so part of the problem right now is that with modern monetary theory, which is like kind of a new theory, I didn't look up when they first like came up with this ingenious theory. Let's see. I'm like quickly scanning an article I pulled up about it. Anything about this? Okay. Ideas around modern monetary theory were developed by economists Bill Mitchell, Warren Mosler, and L. Randall Wray as early as 1992 through email listservs. So 1992, it's been like 30 years since people came up with this concept, and then it's only started to become mainstream in 2020. Okay, and this is from Business Insider. In their personal finance section, I read a thing about modern monetary theory. So that's what they're saying. Where did it come from? It's about 30 years old. Started on an email list, people just talking about it to their email list, and then it got popular about 2 years ago. But the big idea here is that so even though we knew that this fiat currency was basically imaginary the whole time, there was this understanding that it was representative of value and like real value. And so there was a hesitation to, engage in uncontrolled borrowing from a government level. Like the government would still want to, not borrow insane amounts of money from itself, because there was this understanding that it was linked to value. There was an understanding that uncontrolled printing of money would cause problems. And so they didn't want to do it, you know, but under modern monetary theory, there's like no real problems. Like there's no risk of governmental collapse or economic collapse just because there's more money. It's basically like more money just makes everybody richer. So we'll just like print a ton of it, completely divorced from any kind of value in the planet. And then the idea is that if you hit hyperinflation and prices skyrocket because of the easy availability of money, what is the easiest way to remove the money from the money supply? That will be taxation. Okay. And so this is basically where we're at right now. They've flooded the economy with tons of dollars because why? Because we removed a ton of value from the economy, right? So we had COVID, everybody shutting down the businesses, mostly not because they want to, mostly because the government is forcing them to do that. So the government's forcing everybody to shut down their businesses, which is removing value from the economy. People can't work, their value they have added is now removed. So we took away value from the economy, and then we threw dollars at everybody as if the value didn't matter at all. Okay, so that is how this all kind of got started in the recent past. So we're throwing all this money at people, completely divorced from value, and so that we could keep things going, right? Because of course, if we had just closed all the businesses and then nobody had any money, like we just delayed a crisis, right? We didn't want this pandemic to happen. And hey, what's up? Yeah. Hey, are you a Jedi now? Yeah. Don't do that. I'm sorry. That's a bad idea. But nope, we're not gonna do that. It's yucky. Just gotta pick our nose with a lightsaber. Don't do that. It's yucky. No, we don't do that. No. So anyway, so we delayed this crisis because we didn't want a ton of people dying from a pandemic, and also, not having any money, not being able to eat, and there was all of this panic. It's like one easy way to prevent further panic is just make sure everybody has enough money to get their needs met. But then we saw all of this, inflation of pricing, and it's twofold because of all of the value that was removed and then all of the dollars that were flooded in at the same time. Okay, because that's been a big part of the problem, right? Supply and demand. We've had this massive demand because all of a sudden people had this influx of cash, but we didn't have the supply because the supply chain literally like stopped, maybe you remember the lumber shortage earlier in the year, in 2021. So my baby was born here, and we got our floor redone. We had a carpeted dining room, if you can imagine this. It was very sad. And so we redid it with LVP. Right. It was supposed to be done before she was born, and then like all this stuff happened, and all the guys showed up at my house like the day we went in for her to be born. But which I'll just mention, I've had all these home births, but she needed a medically indicated induction, which was a real bummer. Hey, that's not cool. Stop it. What? You want that off? No. Here, have this. It's very silly. But anyway, the lumber shortage, it affected us. We have the most ugly like molding on the bottom of our of the dining room because there just was no other option. Like if you wanted wood, there was no option. Like you could have like really ugly wood, or that was it. And so we can see how I have a lot of friends building houses right now, and it's like, sorry, we can't finish your house because we're missing like this exact kind of nail, and there's just not the supply. So we have cut the supply, increased the demand, and raised the prices on everything. And now we're in this big mess. And so yesterday I had talked about how the way out of this mess is to increase the amount of value proportionate to the amount of dollars. And somebody left a comment, which I really appreciated, which she said, oh my gosh, I can't imagine working harder. Like so many of us are already working our tushies off. And it's like, yes, that actually is true. Like it is true. How is the average Joe even supposed to work harder? Like, how are we supposed to work harder? And of course, the other side of the story is being willing to have less per your money. And so interestingly, I didn't look this up ahead of time. Let me see if I can find it. The guy in charge of the Fed, let's see. Okay, this is from May 26th, but there was one, I think he just said this yesterday as well. So let's look it up. Jerome Powell yesterday. Let's see if that happened. Let's see if this is it. Okay, let's see. So the guy in charge of the Fed, Jerome Powell, said the chances of a soft landing are likely to diminish as the Fed steadily raises borrowing costs to slow the worst streak of inflation in 4 decades. I love this. Oh my gosh, listen to this. He says, no one knows whether this process will lead to a recession, or if so, how significant that recession would be. Yeah, even my baby's laughing. She's like, ha, 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 what an idiot. How can he not know that this is going to lead to a recession? Like, of course. Oh, that's my baby blowing raspberries on my leg. Hello, baby. Stop it. And so, okay, no, but what he said earlier this week was that the goal is to reduce prices and reduce wages, that we have to reduce wages, we have to reduce prices. And so the tough thing is that I think he is right, but like the stupid thing is that it's all their fault, like, yes, we do have to remove, like, basically they've just flooded the economy with dollars, which causes the price of everything to rise because there was not the supply in the economy to keep up with the demand. Everybody has an extra, so we were getting checks for almost $900 a month for our kids, and I'm still like, what? Like, what in the world? That's like the child tax credit situation, and so we just saved it, but we thought about like, oh, should we like stick everybody back in gymnastics? Like, should we do all of these different things? And I think a lot of people did do that, where they were like, oh, we have all this money, like we're gonna put our kids in gymnastics and do all of these things. But the thing is that now everybody has all this money to go buy gymnastics lessons, but they didn't hire more gymnastics teachers. So previously, they couldn't have everybody take gymnastics at the same time, which wasn't a problem because like people couldn't afford it. Then all of a sudden everybody could afford it. They didn't, but there was a finite amount of gymnastics class options. And so what had to happen was they had to raise the prices. And so the prices of everything had to rise because there just was not the supply to keep up with the demand of increased dollar amounts. And here we are. Let me see what I can do about that silly baby. Okay, so back to this issue of the reduced supply. And so, so let's make a little segue here because so this is what's happening. So we have the reduced supply, increased demand, and now there's so many dollars on the market. Prices keep going up because there's this limited supply, but everybody has higher purchasing power. That's completely divorced from value. So like last year, I was out and about. I went to visit my parents, and I was out and about, and I met this lady. And I had my brand fresh baby, and as you know, if you have a brand fresh baby, everybody wants to talk to you. And so she came up and wanted to talk about the baby, and then started telling me all about her life as a gas station worker. And she's worked at the same gas station for something like 40 years. And I don't know, I will say she did not look necessarily qualified to do much other than work at a gas station. I don't know. But she said that ever since COVID, she had been receiving all of these checks to stay home. And so she hadn't been to work in, a year and a half. And she did not plan to go back. And she was just like, man, I love it. It's just so nice to finally get paid to watch TV all day and do nothing. And I love it. I'm not going back until they stop paying me not to work. And I'm sad that they're going to stop paying me to hang out, but you know, it is what it is. And I just thought like, oh, like this is real. Like this is really happening. I don't know. In my normal life, I mean, I'm a stay-at-home mom. I hang out with you guys on the internet, but really it's basically me talking to you, like not really you talking to me. Like I don't know. I was just like, wow, this is real. Like really, really, this is the true lived experience of people. Like they love to sit at home and like do nothing and like love getting paid for it. And like this is real. This actually is happening now. Like none of my personal friends are living this lady's experience, but like it is a real lived experience. It's really happening. And so anyway, here we are. So we've had a bunch of people that are being paid to just hang out. And I don't know. I mean, like she was truly grateful. I mean, she was like, wow, I just love that my government loves me enough that they're going to protect me from COVID and make sure I have all my needs met while I hang out at home. And I'm like, oh, okay. Like, oh, like that's not how this works. But like, okay, like I can see how she feels that way. So anyway, so now everybody has all this money that was not earned. Okay. Like there is no value backing it. Right. And not even the value of other people. Right. That's kind of the big problem with borrowing from the future. The future hasn't existed yet. So we have all this money that so where did we get this money to send to all of our friends at the gas station? You know, well, we got it from no one. I mean, like we printed it out of thin air and said we were borrowing it from our children, but our children are still children and they haven't grown up yet. And I mentioned in another video, we have the additional problem of people not having children anymore. And so we have this inverted pyramid where we have like the baby boomers and each subsequent generation has gotten smaller, 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 smaller. So we're needing to borrow tons of money to keep all of these people's retirements funded. And we've got to borrow it from, little Susie at the bottom, and she's alone, like, guess what? We had this inverted pyramid. And like I said before, when Social Security first got started, there were 16 people paying in for every one person who was getting benefits out. And at the time, the life expectancy was only 63. Okay, that's the average life expectancy, which now it's closer to 85. And so these days, people had so few kids that, oh, beep, beep. Oh, don't sit here. Sit over here. But people had so few kids. Now there's only 2 people paying in for every one beneficiary. And, in a couple of years, it will just be 1-to-1. All the baby boomers will be done retiring by the end of next year. And that leaves the crux of their payments for their retirement benefits and everything on the next generation, which is significantly smaller. So it's going to be a 1-to-1 payee to beneficiary situation. And then on top of that, of course, like now, instead of people dying when they're 61, like when was very average when Social Security got started, now we have to pay for 20 years because people are living much longer than they previously did when the program got started. So we're looking at a massive disaster in that arena as well. But the point is that we've been borrowing all of this money from our children, that haven't created it yet. And so what do we do to get that money out of the system? According to modern monetary theory, we just have to tax it. We just have to tax the crap out of it. We're going to remove money from the system by just raising your taxes as high as we possibly can to take dollars out of your pocket and return it back to the treasury. And the idea is that if we can just have enough taxes, then the money will go back. Like it's going to bring the money supply back down to a reasonable level, and it's going to be fine, no problem. But can anybody spot the problem? How about if all the prices for everything are super high and you have to pay tons of money just to survive, and you're making this money from your employer at maybe, please keep your elbow to yourself. So you're making all this money from your employer at possibly like very inflated wages. I mean, like, we all know like the $15 an hour for like fast food people thing. And I don't know, to me, that's like kind of out of control. I'm like, wow, we got paid $15 an hour to make my hamburger wrong. Like, okay, but whatever. The point is, like, wages are higher than ever, perhaps to a degree that does not match the amount of value added to an experience. And then on top of that, we have, I mean, we have to pay those wages. Like every time you go to the McDonald's, you're paying for these higher wages and you're paying for higher prices for food, because we didn't even talk about the removal of food from the supply, which of course is happening right now, where people are, you know, we're heading into, basically, I've been, in my mind, I call it famine watch, you know, where over 2/3 of America's rice paddies are failing, and it's actually like a dust bowl in that area now in California. And India has banned the exportation of most forms of rice because they are not growing enough rice to feed their own people. They're the biggest exporter of rice. Like if you like rice, now is a great time to go to Costco and stock up, because it will be very hard to find in like 6 months, you know? And obviously in the Netherlands, shutting down what, 17,000 different farming operations, right? So we're actively removing food from the money, food from the food supply. So all the prices of food have to go up, and our current prices are not reflecting that. Right now, our prices are only reflecting inflation, or you know, the inflation of the money supply. So the price hikes are reflecting the inflation. The price hikes are not themselves the inflation. But on top of that, the food prices are not reflecting the fact that the food supply is decreasing in total. You know, the droughts from this year, ranchers are seeing a 50% decrease in cattle. Like they can't keep their cattle alive because there's no water, and so they have to sell them. And like right now, our meat is artificially cheap. Can you imagine this? Because there are so many cattle that are having to be killed just because there's not enough water for them, because there's not enough rain for them. Okay, so think about that. The meat that, like the meat prices you see, that's cheap right now because of the supply, because there's extra supply right now, but that is going to be gone in 6 months, you know? So this is about where we're at. And so I ask you, is raising taxes going to be a solution that you are in love with? Like, is that the solution that you want for your family? Like, is that the solution that is going to feel really good to you as you engage in it, right? And so to me, I'm thinking the situation is no, which is why they, you know, obviously added what, 87,000 new IRS agents to the IRS agent supply. Gotta keep up with the demand in that area, right? And geez, I've never shared this on Facebook. I like wanted to, but I didn't. Oh my gosh.
River short.
Thank you so much. Look at that rainbow river. It is so good. Thank you, honey. Here we go. I found my meme. I have like my little meme file of all my memes that I don't post, but I wish that I did. So let's share the screen. Here it is. This stadium at a capacity of 86,112 is not big enough to hold the 87,000 new IRS agents coming after you. Okay, that is why we needed the IRS to have a massive budget spike, and why we needed tons of new IRS agents, because we need all of these guys to make sure that you and me are going to be paying all of the taxes that are going to be coming up, so that we can remove money from the money supply. Okay, and so again, remember, like in this modern monetary theory, like there is just absolutely no risk of civil unrest because of this. Like there's just, it is completely divorced from the concept of like, maybe people might actually want to feed their families, and maybe people might not be able to pay 50% of everything that they have in taxes. You know, there's just no concept of that. And which makes sense, because the people that are coming up with these things are completely divorced from reality. Like and they're paid to do that. Like it's basically, you know, just like ivory tower sorts, and people that are already rich from politics and like creepy, you know. I'm sure you remember that time recently where they asked Nancy Pelosi if she ever talks to her husband about what's going on in the world, because they like have magically made tons of money in the stock market by trading things that she's legislating about, you know. And she just like walked away and didn't I think she was like, of course I would never talk to him about that, and like walked away, you know. But these are the people that are like, oh, you know, who could possibly have a problem with, you know, us just taxing half of their money, you know, after all of this other stuff that we put them on through, like they just have no idea. Like they don't get it. Oh, this is, my daughter has been bringing me all of the little sales stuff from the mail, but anyway, that is what's going on. That is what's going on. And so as you're kind of living your normal life, I hope that this has been helpful for you to be able to kind of put this into a bigger context and make sense of what's happening. This is what is happening. Okay. And so what can we do about it? I don't know, vote, right? That's what they all say, just go and vote. I actually have zero faith in that at this time. I just don't believe that that will actually help, but I do believe in voting. So we should still vote, you know, still do our part. I plan to continue doing that, even though I don't really believe it will do anything. Because my sense is just that it's too far gone. You know, the only way out of this is going to be a messy thing, because like the fact is we cannot provide retirement benefits for everybody over age 65 for another 20 years. Like it is not possible. There are just not enough humans to do that. Like even if we did not have this currency crisis, even if all the currency was like perfect, there's not the humans. Like they're just not the humans. We are destined for failure either way, you know? How else, like how can we possibly fix the problems that have been created, you know, on a these are global problems now, because, and so that's the thing, if we go back to my video about I Lived a Prophecy and how it was about American Airlines, right? I was talking to somebody about it and they were like, but does it refer to the whole world or just America? And I just thought, guys, everyone in the world is on American Airlines. Like America is the one, we police the oceans. We, you know, make sure we enable all international trade. It's us, you know, everything, all currencies of the planet are tied to the dollar, or like the dollar is, is it called the reserve currency of the world? Like suddenly I'm having a brain fart, but I think that's what it's called. But like the dollar is the thing that everybody else compares their money to. This is the default setting. The default setting of the world is America is the boss in every way. And as soon as that is not true, it's a free-for-all for everybody. Like it is a disaster for everyone. That's the thing. I've been talking a lot about the Pluto return, and I have people, you know, all around the world saying, well, how will that affect us in Japan? How will that affect us in Australia? Why does this relate to us in England? It relates because the entire planet is riding American Airlines, okay? Figuratively speaking, right? But like every single nation depends, the well-being of every single nation in the world depends on American supremacy, American policing of international trade, America enabling of an international trade, and the strength and reliability of the American dollar. And guess what? We're in trouble with that. And I guess now is a good time also to mention that it's not just our currency in trouble. I understand that the Turkish currency, I don't know what their money is, but I understand they're experiencing like 80% inflation. That's out of control, you know? Nations all over the world just now are having all of the stuff from the past 2 years, it's catching up now, and they're having their own problems that have come from printing too much money, you know? And I don't know, there we go. It's a tough thing and we have to live through it, you know? So how are we going to do that? Well, the only way, in my opinion, is we have to be really close to God all the time, right? We have to be listening to God every single day. We have to be asking the right questions and asking, here's the thing, you can ask God what to ask for. And you can just say like, God, what should I be asking about today? Like, what kind of wisdom should I be asking for? What kind of thoughts should I be asking for? What kind of items should I be asking for? What kind of anything should I be asking for?
Mama,
ask what to ask for and listen.
Mommy,
Yeah.
What day is it today?
I'm not sure. It's Wednesday. It's Wednesday and it is preschool day. Okay. I'm almost done. But Anyway, that is the answer. Yeah, we'll do that soon. Yeah, we're gonna do it. So anyway, we have to be asking really great questions. We have to be listening every single day. We have to practice listening and hearing every single day. There is just no other way that we're going to get through it. But if we are doing those things, then I think we have every room to feel safe and trust. Okay, like safety and trust, because God has it under control. And there is really no, I don't know, God has it under control. If we are on God's team, then we're on the winning team. Okay, everything is going to work out for us if we can just stay on God's team. So what do we have to do? We've got to clear out the parts of ourselves that are not in alignment with God, and then we've got to super throw ourselves into whatever it is that God wants us to do, which is going to be different person to person. But I did want to mention really quick that my new book did come out yesterday. It has no reviews yet at all. So if you were an advanced reader, then I hope that you take a minute to go check it out. And leave a review if you were an advanced reader. And if you are not an advanced reader, then I hope that you go read it now. This is all about how to get answers. If you struggle to get answers from God and from your own soul, this book will be really helpful to you. Basically, your intuition, we experience intuition and connection with God through the medium of our physical bodies. And so this book kind of guides you through the entire process and shows you how to make sure that your physical body has everything that it needs in order to receive intuition answers that you can understand. And then on top of that, it talks about like how to ask the right questions, like how to recognize your answers, and like what if you don't get an answer, and all of that stuff. So there we go. I'm really excited about it. I tried to keep it as affordable as possible. This is higher than I wanted it to be honest. But the problem is that I have a picture in it for the first time. I haven't added pictures to my books, and that increases the cost of like ebook delivery or whatever. And also it's much longer than my other books. I think it's like 200 and something pages. It's 204 pages, which is not like super long, but it's longer than my other books. It's definitely my most expensive book on the back end, like my own books. This is my most expensive book for me to actually print, but I'm just so excited that it's out now and something that can be available to everybody. And so I hope it is really helpful to you. Okay, well, there you go. Little economics lesson for you today. And I hope that you are able to look at the world around you and understand what's happening. And remember to stay close to God so that you can be led right through this. And God will tell you exactly every item that you need. God can make sure that in the moment of your need, things just show up for you. And I've seen that happen for myself so many times, where in the moment of need, the story coming into my mind is when I went with a friend on a business trip, and we were going to take a class together. It was like hours away. She'd forgotten her wallet. And I was like, it's okay. I'll bring, like, I've got my wallet. And I like took it out of my purse and like put it on the table so that I'd be like, look, I'm really bringing my wallet. Then I forgot my own wallet. And then we drove, and then we ran out of gas in the actual middle of nowhere in Utah, like the Utah desert, where there's no humans. And like everywhere that you look, there's like no nothing. And we were like, okay, God, what are we going to do? And this lady shows up and fills up her own car with gas. And I like bravely went over and explained the situation. And I just said, look, we have no money. We just need enough gas to like get to our destination. Somebody there will like lend us money, but like we just need enough gas to like get where we're going. And I had my phone. I was like, I can Venmo you. I can PayPal you. I can like make this like credit card transfer. Like I can do anything, but I have no cash. Like I can't do it on this machine at the gas station. And she just handed us $20 and said not to worry about it. And that was that. And like that can happen for you. You can be lost in the middle of nowhere and have somebody show up out of nowhere and give you the $20 that you need. Like it really can happen. These things happen. They happen every day. You are entitled to miracles. What you need to do is clear out the parts of you that don't believe you are entitled to miracles and step into that faith that you do believe in miracles, that you do deserve miracles. it can happen for you. So, okay, that's it for today. Thank you guys for being here. I hope you have a fabulous day. Geez, I just love you so much. Bye.